You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves Postcast. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you after another good night for the Atlanta Braves. They had to battle for it, but they picked up a 7-6 win over the Cincinnati Reds. And just like that, they have won another series here to start the 2023 season, and they have a chance to go for a sweep on Wednesday. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. A lot to talk about in this game, including the return of one of the Braves' key starting pitchers in Kyle Wright, some offensive exploits, a milestone home run, whole lot of good stuff in here for the Braves who battled back for this comeback win and beat the Reds by a 7-6 score. Before we get too far into that, I want to remind you, as always, to subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube. Click the bell to get notified every time we drop a new episode. If you're already here, go ahead and hit that like button. Give us one of those. Give us your comments about what you saw in this game, what you'd like to see going forward, things like that. That helps us have a nice little dialogue with you, and we appreciate you listening. And always make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Well, Jake, I think this was a good win for the Braves in that they had to fight a little bit. They got the offense going a little bit and when they needed to, and you got Kyle Wright back, even if it wasn't the sharpest for him. I just think it meant an awful lot to have Kyle back in your rotation.
Yeah, it means a lot. I mean, again, we talked about it yesterday. A 21-game winner, anytime you can get that back into your rotation is a good thing. But, yeah, I mean, I was excited to see the offense hitting the ball hard and making a lot of good contact, putting up a lot of runs, bailing out the pitching staff. So I think that was certainly one of the best things for me from this Braves game.
Yeah, and we saw a comeback in the opener of the series. It took extra innings to win it, but they got the big hits when they needed it. They went down in the third inning as things kind of went sideways on Kyle Wright, which we'll talk a little bit more about in just a moment. But they got those hits when they needed them. And I do think this is an offense that is kind of being tested, much like the rotation, because they don't have some of their key players, but they've got a dynamic top of the order. They've got some hitters that can come on and, step in and maybe impress you a little bit more than you thought. And it's a guy like Sam Hilliard, who was hitting at the bottom of the order. He was key to what the Braves were doing. So up and down the lineup, I thought there were some things that we're going to talk about here on this edition of the Postcast that were good positives for the Braves as they, again, do take the first two games of the series and are in position to go for a sweep. Let's jump inside the box score of this one. Game number 12 of the year for the Braves. It was the Reds dropping to 4-6. They had 6 runs on 8 hits. No errors, 9 men left aboard. Braves now 8-4 after their win. 7 runs, 11 hits, no errors, 9 men left on. Michael Tonkin, you talk about somebody that stepped up big time for the Braves. If you're looking for key players and performances to take out of this game, how about 3 innings of scoreless baseball from him to pick up the win? His first since 2016. What a great story. He's now 1-1. Luis Cessa took the loss. He was knocked around by the Braves offense, drops to 0-1. And Nick Anderson, his first save in a couple of years, he converts it in the 9th inning as well. And the Braves and Reds played for 2 hours and 44 minutes. 33,559 fans were at Truist Park, or at least paid for the honor of seeing this game. And if you're a Braves fan, you're probably happy with how this whole thing turned out, even if the Kyle Wright performance wasn't exactly what you wanted. I'm going to go through this line, Jake, and you're going to probably look at it and think the same thing that I do. Not the debut that he wanted, but a few boxes were checked with Kyle. 3 innings, 4 hits, 4 earned runs, 4 walks, a hit batsman, 3 strikeouts, 75 pitches. That doesn't knock your socks off, but the fact the velocity was where it needed to be, and the fact that he really just hasn't had a lot of innings to ramp up after missing a significant time in the spring, as long as he's healthy, I think Kyle Wright's going to find a way to make his adjustments and get himself on track in 2023.
Yeah, it's certainly nothing to worry about long-term with Kyle Wright. I think ideally, if Jared Schuster or Dylan Dodd had been throwing the ball impressively, Kyle Wright probably gets another rehab outing before coming up. I think that would have been the ultimate ideal plan for the Braves. As it was, I think they felt like they needed to get him back. And again, long-term, don't worry about it. Obviously, things fell apart for him there in that 3rd inning. The 4 walks, and the hits batter, that's just not typical of what we saw from Kyle Wright last year. So going to be a little bit rusty, but again, once he figures it out, I think he'll be a big part of the middle of this rotation, all year long.
I tell you who helped the Braves figure it out in the middle innings, because when you only get 3 innings out of your starter and you've got the bullpen like the Braves do, that is without Raisel Iglesias, that's without Colin McHugh, that's kind of, being stretched thin and being tested quite a bit over this homestand, to get 3 innings out of Michael Tonkin, 1 hit, no walks, 3 strikeouts from him, 3 very efficient innings, only 43 pitches to get it done. Jake, I don't know if there's too many people that would say that Michael Tonkin made this club as anything more than maybe the the eighth man in the bullpen or the 26th man on the roster, but sometimes you just get these performances where somebody steps up on a night you need him most, and Michael Tonkin definitely did that.
Yeah, and it's one of those roster decision too, because he was out of options, and the Braves didn't want to lose that depth, and it's a big reason why he was on the roster. And Nick Anderson as well. Look, he was going to get demoted, even though he probably deserved an opportunity out of spring training, just because again they wanted to keep that depth around. But here, both of these guys are, not to spoil the end of the story here, but both of them, Michael Tonkin, Nick Anderson, playing big roles in this Braves bullpen. But yeah, when you only get 3 innings from your starter and you get the guy who may have been the last guy in on your bullpen to come in and pitch 3 innings and hold the Reds right there and keep you in that game. What an incredible job by Michael Tonkin, who was really good at Gwinnett last year. So, I mean, again, could be another really good find for the Atlanta Braves in that bullpen when it's really needed because of how shorthanded they are.
Yeah, and this is not a kid that's coming up to the big leagues for the first time. It took him a long time to just get back to get this opportunity. To your point, he struck out a ton of guys in Gwinnett last year, and I think that's what they looked at, Alex Anthopoulos and company. And Brian Snitker, I think, said this after the game. We saw a lot that was to like in Gwinnett last year, and so they didn't want to lose him. They have put him onto the roster, and thus far, I think he's rewarding them. There's a lot of baseball left to be played, but you need a lot of different players at a lot of different times to step up on different nights. And this was a night for Michael Tonkin to do just that. And he took that opportunity and he ran with it. He picks up that first big league win in 7 seasons. That's quite a while to go between big league victories. Rest of the bullpen, Jesse Chavez, a scoreless frame. Joe Jimenez ran into some trouble, only retired 1 batter, a 2-run homer allowed by him. But Nick Anderson was able to close it out. Dylan Lee got Joe Jimenez out of trouble. But, I think for Jimenez, it's going to be finding that extra couple of miles an hour that he's missing right now, Jake. That's a big part of what made him effective for the Tigers last year. He had that minor back procedure. He's obviously back in pitching. They don't believe that that's a long-term issue for him, but clearly in the short term and coming back in spring training and thus far in the season, he is missing that little extra giddy up on the fastball, and I think that's making a difference, and not in a good way.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's just not a guy you can trust coming out of the bullpen right now until you see that velocity come back and you see him get back to where he was last year. And, that's a big loss for the Braves because they were expecting him to be one of their big setup guys. And perhaps he will be once that velocity does come back later in the year. But just as where we are right now, he may be your last guy in the bullpen. And that's a big bummer for this Braves team. But yeah, another rough outing for him. Really, it's been a lot of rough outings for him, even going back to spring training. But as you said, had that procedure, still kind of trying to work his way back and get that velocity back up. But the Braves need him to be that setup guy that they traded for.
Yeah, they definitely do. So the bullpen was able to do enough after Kyle Wright was knocked out early. And of course, again, the key player was Michael Tonkin. We'll talk a little bit more about the Braves offense and some of the key plays and a milestone home run I mentioned earlier. Ozzie Albies, the man who hit it. We'll tell you more about it now, but I want to remind you the grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays, they're back. And there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official partner of Major League Baseball. So as we talked about this offense, or we get into this offensive discussion, I mean, it all starts with the top. Ronald Acuna Jr. had himself a nice night, on base 3 more times, knocked in a run. At the bottom of the order, meanwhile, Sam Hilliard was a big-time player for the Braves. Couple of hits, both of them doubles, knocked in a run, scored a run, drew a walk, and that's bookending this lineup, which we knew after you get beyond pretty much the 3rd spot in the order had been full of a lot of questions for Brian Snitker and company, but they were able to find the hits they needed, get some rallies going. And one man that was in the middle of this on this day and somebody who needed a big hit on this homestand was Ozzie Albies, a 2-run game-tying homer in the 4th inning, his 100th home run of his career. Nice milestone for Ozzie Albies. And Jake, hopefully this is something that gets him kick-started offensively.
Yeah, he was one of the guys I talked about on the podcast on Tuesday as somebody off to a slow start, not impacting the baseball. His bottom 7 percentile in average exit velocity. So good to see him, making some hard contact. Really the entire Braves lineup, 19 hard hits by the Braves tonight. That is certainly great to see with the way the offense had been lately. We'd been seeing less than 10 hard hit balls a game by this Braves offense. 4 by Marcell Ozuna. I know he only had the 1 hit, but good to see a lot of these guys up and down the order making contact. You mentioned Sam Hilliard in the 9th spot through 12 games now. The Braves nine-hole batter has an OPS of 1016 on the season, batting .400. So you want to get somebody going, put them in front of Ronald Acuna Jr. That seems to be a pretty good recipe for getting somebody going at the plate.
It was a tried and true recipe the Braves used quite a bit a year ago when they got Michael Harris and Vaughn Grissom involved in the bottom of that order. The Braves' 9th place hitters, it's no joke. I mean, these guys are giving you a lot more production than was the pitcher. Now, the question is, can you get production out of the DH, wherever that spot is in the Braves lineup? TBD. However, on this night, you mentioned Marcell Ozuna, a lot of hard hit contact, just missed a 3-run homer in his 3rd at bat. I'm not going to sit here and tell you one night of hard hit balls is going to get him going, but he was able to be in the middle of things. He had a single, scored from first on a double by Sam Hilliard. I mean, he's putting forth the effort. I'll give him that, but he's still batting just under 100 on the year. He's going to need quite a few nights like this to start getting people to believe that Marcell Ozuna can provide any kind of impact and make the kind of just basic production that would be needed for him to keep getting these at bats over other players.
Yeah, and that's the real key right now for Marcell Ozuna is he going to be taking at bats away from other guys who need opportunities? And really, until a Sam Hilliard and Eli White, even to a degree, Eddie Rosario steps up and shows that they deserve those at bats, Ozuna's going to continue to get those. And look, he's a guy that can be streaky. He can go on a streak and hit a bunch of home runs in a week or two to really help your offense. I mean, he still has that hard hit profile for him, but again, it's over 180 games now that we've seen of him being below 700 OPS type players. So you're right. It's going to take a while for him to kind of earn that confidence back.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be consistent. And that's the one thing, Jake, I think everybody that's had a discussion about this or heard us discussing it or just has general thoughts about it, it's been so inconsistent for so long, and it's been just flat out absent for long periods of time that you just have a hard time believing that this guy can give you anything close to the kind of production that he had given in his career up to the point of 2020. Not asking him to compete for another Triple Crown. It'd certainly be nice, but I don't think anybody's realistic expectation was that he bat .330 every year and lead the league in RBI and home runs. But it would be nice if he was making some kind of contribution, and we'll see if he's able to get kickstarted on a night like tonight as well. I mean, Ozzie Albies needed to get things turned around as well on this homestand, a 2-run homer for him. The scoring got started with a home run from Matt Olson, his 4th on the year. He continues to be among the most productive first basemen in all of baseball, productive hitters, period. In terms of extra base hits, runs knocked in, home runs, he's the leader for the Braves in that category. He also leads the Braves in walks, but Sean Murphy, despite having almost 20 fewer plate appearances, is closing in on Matt Olson for that team lead in walks and came into the day, if you can believe this, as the Braves on-base percentage leader. So you're getting some contributions from different guys in the lineup, and you're going to need that night after night. For Ozzie Albies, home run number 100 of his career. I know you and I have talked about Ozzie, and we know what he's capable of when he's hot and when he gets going, but it's hard to, or sometimes I think we forget, this guy's still only 26 years old.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we forget that with a lot of these guys who are really young. I mean, Acuna's still really young. I mean, a lot of these guys they've locked up, they're all in their mid to late 20s, even you talk about Riley and Olson and Murphy. So, I mean, that's a young core here. Good to see Albies already at 100 home runs. Good to see that big hat that they put on in the dugout look absolutely ridiculous. So that was a lot of fun as well. But the Braves need Ozzie. I mean, they need Ozzie to be that silver slugger all-star type player. I think it's going to take him a little while to kind of get back to that, get his timing down. So again, I think you're gonna have to be a little bit patient with him, but it's going to be a big part of this Braves lineup to have Ozzie batting 5th, 6th in the order, showing that power, getting on base, using his speed as well. So yeah, he's a big factor for this Braves offense this season.
Yeah, real quick, one other note one other news item that came out prior to the game, and I'm going to get an ad read, and then we'll preview the finale of this series with Spencer Strider on the mound. But the season is over for Ian Anderson. He's going to have to undergo Tommy John surgery. Jake, when we came into the spring, we weren't talking about Dylan Dodd and Jared Schuster. We're talking about Ian Anderson, Bryce Elder, Michael Soroka. Those were guys we thought were going to be the 5th spot in the rotation. For Ian, it just didn't work out in the spring. And after his first start in Gwinnett, he left complaining of an elbow injury. And it turns out that he has a UCL injury and will need Tommy John surgery. Hopefully, again, we talk about guys who are really young and have a full career ahead of them. that this, even though it's going to be a hard road back and a lot of work for him to do so, maybe this will be the kind of reset that he needs that just clears up an issue and helps him go out and tap back into the potential that made him a really bright star for some very big Braves moments and great Braves teams, including the one that won the World Series in 2021. Ian Anderson was a huge part of that.
He was. And look, that was my thought, after, thinking, feel for Ian Anderson, hate this for him. But my next thought was maybe this will be a good thing in the long run, be kind of a reset for him when he comes back. Thankfully the success of this surgery has gotten better and better over the years, but hopefully it comes back somewhat of a reset for him. We can see him be that guy that he was before. I believe it was reported, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this was the first time he had mentioned that elbow was hurting. I know some people were maybe speculating that was what was the issue was over the last year or so, but from him and what we've heard, this was the first time he'd actually reported that elbow was hurting. So I don't know that it's necessarily a fix to what's happened or it's part of what has happened over the last year or so, but either way, hopefully he has a successful surgery, comes back, uses it as a reset to get back to where he was. Because love Ian Anderson, love what he's done, obviously, for the Braves in the postseason especially. So I'd love to see him get back to doing that in a Braves uniform.
Yeah, he'll have a lot of people pulling for him as he goes through this. Surgery has not been set yet, but Brian Snitker did say before the game, this is going to happen soon. And he did say that this was the first that anybody had said anything about an elbow issue as being something that he's been dealing with. So unfortunately for Ian, it's a road that he has to travel, but it's a road that a lot of people have traveled and resumed their careers. And we hope that's the same for him. So we'll talk about game 3 of this series. Spencer Strider on the mound as the Braves go for a sweep. After I tell you about our new sponsor, So Rare, a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Head to SoRare.com/lockedon to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win those epic rewards. SoRare.com/lockedon to start playing today. That's where you need to go. Braves will be playing on Wednesday. Spencer Strider on the mound looking for a second win of the year. He matches up against Hunter Green. I'm excited about the possibilities of watching these two guys, big fastballs, big strikeout pitchers, going at it in the finale. Braves looking for the sweep.
Yeah, you like high velocity. You got to tune into this one. You're going to see a lot of it between Hunter Green and Spencer Strider. And, obviously great to have Strider on the mound. You're going for a sweep, but want to see that offense continue to do what they done, or at least did on Tuesday night, and hopefully have a little bit more comfortable win. Want to win either way you can get it, but they could use a nice comfortable one instead of sweating these out here at the end. But yeah, what a pitching matchup between two young flamethrowers. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch on Wednesday night.
It most certainly will be. 7:20 p.m. Eastern time, the first pitch from Truist Park for game 3 of this series as the Braves are looking to sweep away the Reds, then enjoy an off day, then head out on the road to face the Kansas City Royals. That will bring us to the end of this edition of the Locked On Sports Atlanta Braves postcast. Make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube. Click the bell to get notified every time we drop an episode. We appreciate you joining us on this one. And make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Braves. Wherever you get your podcast, you'll get the postcast and all the other great stuff Jake has for you all season long. Once again, the Braves winners by a 7-6 score as they take the series and have that chance to sweep away Cincinnati on Wednesday. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We will catch you next time. So long, everyone.